Hello and welcome back to Ken O'Connor Racing. Today what we're going to do is we're going to be working with a product from Race Logic, and they call these sportport templates. These are made by John Caldwell. He's got a pretty extensive background with Yamaha, and what he does, he takes this magnetic material and computer designs port layouts, cuts them into these templates, so pretty much you can do your own porting. I've used these templates on several different models of snowmobiles, ATVs, a bunch of stuff, just trying them out. And he's got a really good product here, and we're gonna shoot a video for him. I'm actually gonna port a cylinder. What we're working on here is a Polaris 800cc twin with power valves, and you can basically go to his website. It's racelogic.com. and look up your make and model, and you'll be surprised. He's got templates that cover just about everything, especially snowmobiles. This guy's big into snowmobiles. So what we're going to do is we've got our kit. You get a manual with it. The manual, we'll go through this really quick, but he just gives you the do's and the don'ts and shows you, how to do the porting, what tools you need. Gives you some safety precautions. It's good reading. If nothing else, and the templates definitely work. So we'll get started with showing you what you're going to need to actually perform this stuff first. Here's the tools we're going to use to port the cylinder. We've got a couple of right angle grinders. I got one set up for grinding the left side, one set up for grinding the right. I'll explain that later when we get into it. And I actually like these, a little bit smaller profile. A lot of stuff I work on is fairly small in bore diameter, so the cars in these work really good. A lot of guys work on bikes with these. I actually prefer these. They're not as tough as this type of grinder, but they're cheap. You can replace these things for about $65. I've got a pretty good assortment of carbides, stones, sanding wheels, buffers, and you're going to need all of this stuff. This is all Fordham equipment. I'm using a Fordham motor with a foot control that controls the speed to drive all of this stuff. These are some of the grinders that we use here at Ken O'Connor Racing. You can get away with other stuff. This is more of a professional setup. I know you can use Dremels. I know Dremels have right angle attachments for them, but we do this stuff for a living here, so you need some industrial equipment. This stuff works pretty well. I've had some of this stuff for 25, 30 years. And CC Specialty is where we get all of our supplies. Great company, very knowledgeable people. They rebuild equipment. I'll show you the porting station we're going to use next. This is the porting stand that we use. Picked this up quite a while ago, but it's kind of neat. You can move your cylinder around anywhere you want. The other thing you're going to need, you probably don't have one of these. You can use a vise. John explains that in his booklet, but what you really are going to need is a lot of light. So we've got a couple of lights. I can actually put 3 lights on different angles if I want, and you can. Once you start doing this, you'll see as you move the light, the lines will get more defined. Sometimes putting the light directly on the line is not the best thing to do, and we'll explain that later. Okay, chapter 1 in the book discusses the cylinder preparation, and basically what that concerns is cleaning the cylinder thoroughly. John recommends that you use alcohol. We used carb cleaner here. Probably use brake cleaner. Anything just to get the grease off. Has to be a really clean surface, or your layout fluid isn't going to stick. It's not going to adhere, and when you put your template on, it's going to peel it right off. So alcohol, rubbing alcohol, or brake cleaner, or carb cleaner, it's probably all going to work fine. The next thing that we did is we went ahead and we used Dicom bluing. You can get that. MSC is a good company. We get most of our machine shop stuff from them. That's where we got that, and we just put a nice coat on there, not too thick, not too thin, just evenly lay it out, and then let it dry completely. The next step is to lightly grease the inside of the cylinder. The book calls to do that. We don't do it like that. We grease the back side of the template, and it's the same thing. It just seems a little bit easier than sticking your fingers in there. At that point, the template's going to get laid up in here, and I'll show you how to do that. Once you have your cylinder prepped, you have your bluing in there and it's dry, you just go ahead, put the template in, line it up this way. We look at the sides of the exhaust port here and the sides of the template and just get everything lined up like that. The next step is to use a straight edge and we just put it here, pull your template back at you. That's going to align the top of it. The next step is to go ahead and push the template down and get it to adhere to the grease, making sure that you maintain the same height with the template as you set with your straight edge. Once you have your template laid out where you want it in the cylinder, we use a pick like this with the bend in it. Just going to very carefully push the template down, and don't go back and forth when you make the lines. Make one nice straight line. So you just push the template in, get it to adhere to the grease, and then come in and just make a nice sweeping line. Trace out John's port layout. If you ever get a chance to talk to John on the phone, I don't want to make his phone ring off the hook, so I'm not going to give you his phone number, but he's a pretty interesting guy, and he's a firm believer in these templates. He explained to me his exact words, and I'll quote him, porting anything without a template, maybe not even his template. We make these templates too. There's computer programs out there that you can get to figure this out and make your own layout, but he says porting without a template is ludicrous. And I agree with him. We don't use these exclusively, but we do use them. It's a great product. Like I say, we have computer programs. We generate our own. The quality of his templates is much better than mine. I use like an oak tag when I make mine and then cut them out by hand. He actually cuts these out on a CNC. So he programs all these radiuses. And even though this looks like a pretty straight angle, he can have up to 20 radiuses in an area this big. And he's able to do that with these templates. So I have to agree with John that, without some kind of a guideline, you can't just get in there by hand and start cutting a bunch of steel. Things aren't going to be even. Things aren't going to be the same. So I have to agree with John that, any kind of porting should be done with some sort of template. It's going to be a little trickier to film than we anticipated, but you can see the line in here. Nice straight line, and that's what we're going to be porting to. It's important when you get in there with the tools, and I don't think you can see it, but we're actually going to do quite a bit of work to this auxiliary exhaust port too. It's important when you get your tools in here that you just work to the line. I actually don't even work to the line. I'll keep my distance from it initially when we're doing the rough cut. To port this particular line, I'm going to use the Ford number 8 with the extended bit. Alright, like I say, we're using the number 8 with an extended bit, pretty long, and just coming right up through the exhaust port, the tunnel. And you have to have patience, and you have to do this slow. You can't just dig in. You're going to get all kinds of lumps and bumps. John says to use a sweeping motion. You just kind of... I'm actually going to do this port half at a time. Moderate pressure on it. These bits, these long bits, you can't run them at really high RPM. They'll helicopter, I call it, on you. They'll bend and make a big mess of everything. But that's basically the technique. Alright, I finished grinding the exhaust port right to the line, and again, I apologize. I know it's probably really hard to see. The next thing we're doing is the auxiliary exhaust ports. What John did is he widened it about 2 millimeters, so it's like 2 millimeters wider up here we're going to grind, and about 1 millimeter higher. And to do that, I'm going to use the right angle grinder. This is actually loaded backwards, but I am going to cut. I just prefer to cut it this way. I'm going to start up in here and get this angle, pull this port in this way, and then I'm going to have to switch to the opposite rotation. I have 2 of these, one's turning left, one's turning right, and then I'll pull in this way and blend the 2.